welcome to Dialogue. Hamas political leader Ismail Khamenei was killed in Iran after attending the inauguration of the country's new president. Though no country has claimed the responsibility for the attack, both Hamas and Iran pointed to Israel. What more do we know about the strike and who could be responsible? What does it mean to the ongoing ceasefire talks over Gaza? And could this attack further inflame tensions and spark a regional Middle East war? Join us for our live discussion today from Beijing. I'm Xu Jinduo. Joining me today in the first part are Zhou Bo, Senior Fellow at the Center for International Security and Strategy at Tsinghua University, and Ali Akbar Dareini, researcher and writer at the Journal of the Center for Strategic Studies in Tehran. Welcome to Dialogue. I will start with you, Mr. Dareini. So tell us, who is Haniyeh? He's a political leader of Hamas. What does that mean in terms of his position inside this group?
Haniyeh is the chief political leader of Hamas. He has a long record in fighting Israeli occupation, and he is known as the symbol of resistance against Israeli occupation. So his loss is a very bad news for the whole resistance front and his supporters and the Palestinian people. So he played a key role in negotiations. He's a pragmatic leader, and Israel's assassination of Haniyeh is like two parties having negotiations and one party assassinating and murdering the negotiator. So he played a key role in the fight against Israeli occupation of Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Dareini, you mentioned about Israelis conducted this, executed this assassination, but Israel has so far refused to, acknowledge, or claim responsibility for the killing of Mr. Haniyeh. So, how much do we know about the strike?
Israel is following a policy of ambiguity in many issues, including its nuclear weapons program. It is a nuclear power, but follows nuclear ambiguity policy. And when it engages in terrorism and assassinating its opponents, it follows a policy of ambiguity, not confirming nor denying that. But it's obvious that Israel was behind the assassination. Who has more incentives and motivation to assassinate Haniyeh than Israel? No one. Israel has the most incentive. Who had declared that it will eliminate and assassinate Haniyeh? Israel. So there is no doubt that Israel was behind this assassination. Two assassinations, one in Beirut, one in Tehran, in less than 24 hours. And this has pushed the region towards more tensions and could lead to a wider regional war. And this is exactly what Netanyahu wants.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Zhou Bo, tell us if Israel is, let's say, responsible for this attack. And then what's the purpose of killing? Basically, this is a negotiator from the other side, from Hamas, and who is seen as a moderate, who is seen as pragmatic. And what is the purpose?
Well, I tend to agree with the Iranian speaker when he talked about the motivation of Israel, but I would argue from another point is that it's capabilities. Very few countries actually have this kind of capability of precision targeting someone, except the United States and Israel, probably. And clearly, Secretary Clinton, Anthony Blinken has denied the American involvement in this. So the only one left is probably Israel. I think that Israel has been very much, adamant in trying to eradicate Hamas. But the point is, even with some talks with some Israeli scholars, Hamas is an ideology. It can hardly be totally eradicated. But the situation definitely is becoming more chaotic. What I'm thinking is, if Israel is really targeting, the political leader of Hamas, who is in another country, who is in Iran. This shows that okay, Israel would have a total disregard, for sovereignty of Iran. Probably this is exactly what Israel wants to do, to show you that wherever the criminal might be, if you shield him, I would just follow you, to the end of the world. Do that. So this is actually a strong political message. If Israel does that, of course it knows the political consequences, right? But it doesn't seem to bother about that. So whether that is Netanyahu's plan or not, we don't know. Because some people argue that the longer the war, it would better serve his purpose.
Political life, many people say. But are you saying that the death of Mr. Haniyeh will not weaken the Hamas resistance, against Israel? As you said, this is an ideology, this is a movement. Possibly, it will encourage probably the Hamas to fight more fiercely against Israel.
I think this is a difficult question to answer because in my talk with some Israeli scholars, I asked them this question. You see, theoretically, or at least on the face of it, the Israeli forces has actually pushed to the very end, yeah, of the Gaza. That means they basically have cleaned, yeah, the whole Gaza. But the answer from the Israeli scholar is that, well, you don't know what is underground, right? So Hamas has developed more than 1,000 kilometers of underground. So that would take a long time. So the question whether the death of a Hamas leader could actually invigorate more people to become Hamas, or would it become a deterrent to show that wherever you hide, I can still follow you, I can trace you, I can kill you. That could be deterrent. So we have to wait and see.
Mr. Dareini, with the loss of Mr. Haniyeh, how do you think this is going to affect the ongoing talks over a ceasefire between Israelis and Hamas? Will this make the Hamas side say, find less reason or less causes to make any concessions? Probably, basically, that will make the discussions more difficult. If there's any agreement to be reached.
Definitely, when one party assassinates the negotiator, it is torpedoing the negotiations for a ceasefire. So, and that clearly shows that Israel has no interest at all in a ceasefire. Israel has opposed a permanent ceasefire. Netanyahu's political life will end if this war is going to end. So Netanyahu's plan is to create more chaos and expand the war in order to survive politically. And unfortunately, the Americans have been supporting him, applauding for Netanyahu in the US Congress is tantamount to approving his agenda of genocide against Palestinians and expanding terrorist activities elsewhere. So the assassination of Haniyeh is going to cause a great jeopardy for the negotiations to reach a ceasefire.
Mr.
If
Dareini,
it's not going to kill it at all.
Right. We know there's this killing, of course, happened on Iranian soil. Mr. Haniyeh had been traveling, of course, he's based in Qatar, has been traveling to other Arab countries, to Iran, to Turkey, to Moscow, for example. Why, if it's Israel, why did Israel, assassinate him in Iran?
For several reasons. One, to send a clear message to Iran. Assassinating Haniyeh in Qatar or elsewhere could have complicated Israel's relations with those states. And Israel wanted to strike a blow against the entire resistance movement, including Iran. And Iran and Israel have accounts to settle. But the bigger reason to me is that this is why, to me, Israel carried out this assassination. Netanyahu wants to survive. He needs to expand the war in the Middle East to survive. So Netanyahu is very much anxious to draw the United States and Iran into a regional war. Of course, it depends on the United States whether it will fall into this trap or not. But from the Iranian side, Iran cannot afford not responding to this brazen act of terrorism. Terrorism is in the DNA of the Zionists, including Netanyahu. So this Israel crossed a red line that Iran cannot ignore. Iran has to respond more powerfully than the previous operation to make sure that it will be able to restore its deterrence that has been undermined by this assassination. Assassinating an honorable guest of Iran in the heart of the capital, Tehran, is embarrassing for Iran's security establishment, and also leaves no option for Iran but to respond. Now, strategists in Iran are thinking what to do. To go for an all-out war? Iran doesn't want an all-out war. So what to do next? Iran has to respond and make Israel, regret this assassination and give Israel a bloody nose. So it's going to be a powerful response. But at the same time, Iranian strategists are thinking how to contain this cycle of action and reaction. So the question is not whether Iran is going to respond. Iran will respond powerfully. But the question is where and how Iran is going to respond. And the bigger question is, will this cycle of actions and reactions be contained and avoid a regional war?
Yes, Mr. Dareini, we know that the new president of your country, during his campaign for the election, he talked about basically engagement with Washington so as to alleviate, if not lift, the sanctions on Iran. So how will this event impact any possible development in that direction?
Sure. Another goal of Netanyahu administration in assassinating Haniyeh was to derail President Pezeshkian's agenda. Pezeshkian was elected on the platform of promising a change and a dialogue with the West that had been deadlocked. So Israel doesn't want relations between Iran and the West to be improved. Israel wants more tensions between Iran and the West. If tensions are reduced between Iran and the United States, Israel's interests will be in jeopardy. So he doesn't want that. Mm-hmm. He's actively trying to torpedo the process of negotiations between Iran and the West. And one of the goals of the assassination is to derail President Pezeshkian's agenda and make sure that tensions will expand, not reduced.